It's 6:39 PM, and I'd like to call the March 21st, 24 HCDC meeting to order. For agenda item number 2, we don't have our new commissioner here, do we?
Yeah, you can defer that item.
Okay, so we're deferring agenda item number 2. Moving on to agenda item number 3, the consideration of the meeting minutes from the November 16th, 2023 HCDC meeting. Are there any edits or corrections to the November 16th meeting minutes? May I have a motion to approve the November 16, 2023 HCDC minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 4, public comment. Are there any public comments for items not on the agenda? Just a friendly reminder, we're only taking comments up to 5 minutes, and again, they're unrelated to the agenda.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Ninosca Campos. Soy trabajadora esencial, solicitante de asilo. Soy del país de Honduras y pertenezco y soy miembro a la organización de Escucha Mi Voz.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ninosca Campos. I'm from Honduras and I'm an asylum seeker and I'm a member of Escucha Mi Voz.
Este mes compartimos con las comisiones y consejos de la ciudad y del condado un nuevo informe que hicimos en el Departamento de Salud Pública.
This month, we're going to be sharing a report that we did with City Council and the Johnson County Supervisors about public health.
Nuestro informe de salud se basa en una encuesta que se realizó a 481 trabajadores del condado de Johnson.
This report is where we surveyed 481 immigrant workers in Johnson County.
Tenemos copias para entregarles ahora en día y si ustedes quieren les presentamos con más detalles el próximo mes. Solo háganoslo saber.
We have a copy of the report for each of you, and if you'd like us to come back and present on it, we'd be happy to.
Gracias.
Thank you. I heard that on the news. Is that NPR that does it today?
Thank you. Are there any other public comments for items not on the agenda? Moving on to agenda item number 5, the discussion and consideration of the FY25 Emerging Aid to Agencies funding request and the consideration of a budget recommendation. Is there any discussion on the FY25 Emerging Aid to Agencies applications?
If we were just like, nah, let's move on. Where do we want to start?
What'd you do? I saw it laying on the floor. Well, I have a question. I'll start. In the staff recommendations, and I'm going to paraphrase, I think there was a comment regarding there's a 2-year, an agency shouldn't receive funds more than 2 years. And I could find that as any kind of rule. I looked back through some of the documentation, so I had a concern if it wasn't a written rule or published or something that I don't think we should adhere to something like that, but so that was one of my issues.
Is it a rule? Can I ask staff?
No, I don't believe we have a rule, but that's how we That's something we use to determine our recommendation.
Oh, okay.
I guess I think that if we are going to use that, that kind of thing should be a published rule. You know, it helps us, it keeps things transparent for us, it helps us in making decisions. Simply, I don't want agencies applying for money and spending that time doing applications if they're not eligible, and so I think that if it's a rule and transparent, then they wouldn't have applied, so
We do say in the application that it's not intended to be an ongoing source of funding, so
Yeah.
that's kind of where we have that language.
yeah.
We received a lot of applications too, so that was part of the consideration there.
And then they could apply for legacy?
No.
They can't?
No. There's a cliff, and
Oh, I see.
that's the problem. There's a cliff. If they get funds from emerging agencies for 2 years, they die on the cliff unless they're accepted, or they get to be a legacy agency. So somehow that you know, we need to deal with that, because that cliff, it's a limbo for them. They have nowhere to go. And quite frankly, I mean, if I look at this, we have, in my interpretation, we have 3 organizations offering services to immigrants, non-documented folks, which is becoming quite an issue, and I'm not sure that it's not going to be an issue in 2 years. So if they were to receive funds for 2 years, what happens in another 2 years? Then they have no place else to go. They don't have the ability to get emerging agency funds, and, you know, the legacy group is a closed group. So those are my concerns with the way that we're interpreting that 2 years and where they go from here. Because I'm assuming the city, we as a community would want to deal with the pressing issues that come up in our community, and there will be a time limit for them because if we say no to an organization that, because you've gotten funds in 2 more years, I'm assuming we're going to create that rule. Then what happens, so.
And on the other side of it, I like it as a guideline. I mean, I do think you have to put a limit on what aid to an emerging agency needs to be. I mean, at what point are they no longer emerging? At what point because anybody who lives in Iowa City knows there are hundreds of organizations and agencies that exist in town that could obviously use some assistance, and there is absolutely a finite amount of funds, both on legacy and emerging. And you're right, there is a cliff, but the cliff is supposed to be, here's the city helping organizations get started, get to that next point where they do have a couple years of being able to hire the people that they need to put in place to do fundraising and do the rest of it, to find the private donors. So I see the common sense behind it. I see the reasoning behind it, because you have to have that cliff. I mean, you have to have this middle ground where the city is helping organizations get started, but isn't there forever as just an ongoing source of funds, almost as a crutch. I mean, you just can't, otherwise you do have, where do you say no to anybody? At what point do we sit here with 50 or 60 organizations on our plate, trying to figure out how to give the measly, because it's not much.
No.
It's hard enough for me to sit down and figure out how to,
Right.
figure out how to divvy up 37. I mean, if there were 50 organizations here, we'd be talking about giving them, $50 to $100 each. I did appreciate that as a means of thinking, as far as where staff is concerned. At some point, the city's got to just be like, hey, if you've gotten it 2 or 3 years, we want to focus on emerging agencies who are in that blossoming, chrysalis stage as far as that goes. So I agree with you, Beck, as far as there is this weird cliff where you're not big, you're not Shelter House, United Way big, and you're not ready for these, these large agency funds that are helping support large-scale projects, but you're no longer the new kid in town who needs that step up. And you're right, I don't know where that middle ground is. I just think you've got to have that, I don't know, at least to me, I think we've got to have that somewhere in our mindset. And I don't know, I don't know. I did appreciate it because I do agree as far as some of that goes, which is, you got to make room for the new kids on the playground every once in a while.
Well, I'll respond to a couple of things. It takes a whole lot more than 2 years to develop the resources to be able to raise money in a nonprofit organization. One development director for an organization, if you want a good one, you're going to spend upwards of 50 grand plus benefits. So, I won't get on my soapbox about, the resources and raising money in Iowa City and Johnson County, because it's not easy. It's not an easy game to do. So, we're not going to solve this tonight. I realize this. I'm not going to pull back my recommendation for Healthy Kids school-based clinics because I think it's a needed organization. But I would like to say this. Next month, we will have a report from the subcommittee that we've been working on funding. And I think we need to take a look at the cliff. I think we need to work further, and we need to take a look at that cliff and decide if we're going to keep the closed group legacy agencies or we're going to change the whole thing. Because I don't like this cliff that 2 years and they fall off and there's no resources. And I think it's going to be problematic in a couple of years when we say no to any of these organizations that are asking for money for issues that aren't going to go away in our community. And I don't see them being able to develop the resources to raise the money that they're going to need. And you're right, we don't have enough money in this fund, so.
There are organizations we have given more than 2 years of EA2A2, correct? I feel like I've seen a
don't
few.
think so.
No? Okay.
I think the most we've
Maybe
done
I've just
is 2
seen
years.
them in here a couple times. Where
Yeah, Center for Worker Justice was funded 2 years in a row, but then they moved on to other funding sources.
Well, before
I
we
think-
have, go ahead. No, you go.
I think we have, for us who have scored, we have the rankings of who got the highest scores and that kind of stuff. And,
We didn't score this group.
well, we provide a recommendation.
Right.
Okay. So could we just start like that? Or we could just,
Yeah.
if everybody has to give, if the minimum allocation is 5,000, then we could just say 5,000 to the top, 7 or something.
I would say that by the time we do this again next year, I'd like this issue to be resolved because I don't think that it is fair to put out applications for organizations to spend the time to apply for it and then find out that they're not eligible after the fact. So I think we should put this on a future agenda and make a decision about it.
I think we can do that, but that's just our staff recommendation. It's not that they're not eligible. If you want to recommend funding, you certainly could.
It would be helpful for me to have a where are they now sort of update to see whether that cliff really is a meaningful cliff, or do the organizations find funding elsewhere to stay alive? And, because if they do, then it's not really a problem. But if you're starting to see these organizations go for their 2 years and then peter out, then it does become a problem. So without that information, so if we could have something like a follow-up on historically, where are those organizations that have gotten this money in the past?
We do collect semi-annual reports from these agencies when they're funded, so we could do a better job providing those to the commission.
But this is after the fact, after they've
Afterwards.
already, 2 years from when they got that funding. So basically looking at what happened, do they actually fall off that cliff? Or have they had the time to build the scaffolding that they need?
Okay, so where does that leave us now?
Well, our minimum,
5,000 minimum.
yeah, so that has to change.
Well, I mean, $5,000 is not, anyway. Well,
Because like you said, if we just do the top 7, right, well, even then, we have to give somebody else the other 2,000. We can't,
well,
can't,
but
yeah.
we've got, I mean, the number 1 ranking was Iowa City Compassion.
Passion, yep, yep.
With the average of, and this, we could just stick in there right now $6,000.
Yep.
Then the next one is Trail. And the
This is the
average
Trail's the one that
recommendation.
came to us last year, right? The one that does the senior, low-income senior stuff and.
Right.
Yeah.
The average allocation from the commission was 5,500, so why don't we just for,
Throw numbers in,
yeah, 5,500. And I can't pronounce
I
it.
was gonna say, I'll let you.
Can I, is it okay just to say me boys?
Yeah, we can say EMB.
Oh, EMV, works perfect.
Oh, EMV, that's perfect.
EMV, that's,
Okay, 5,000.
I am going to learn it, though. I am
me
determined to
too.
learn it, to remember it.
They have,
So another 5,000 there, yeah. Sober living was what, about 45? Yeah.
yeah, give them 5, that's a minimum. VNA. 5.
Well, I have a question about that. So when we, the last time that we opened up for legacy agencies, we said that we didn't want to get into third-party, anybody who collects I don't know how to say it, third-party revenue. So VNA is not one of those organizations. They get a lot of revenue. I voted 0, I think, for both VNA, at least for VNA, only because we can't make a dent into, making up for lost funds because they're not getting reimbursed enough. And they're a pretty large organization, and I just, my thing is, I think we need to put more money into programs that are helping the immigrant population. That's where I am. And Healthy Kids School-Based Clinic, I'm just going to say it. If you read it's Chuchos Vimios or something. I don't know if I'm close or not.
Just say
Immigrant Welcome Network and Iowa City Compassion, I believe they all work on referring kids to Healthy Kids School-Based Clinics. And if people were persuaded by the fact that they can only get money for 2 years, I ask if that remains, because I think
If you want to, Becky, if you want to give the Healthy Kids $5,000, put it up there.
Okay, I'm going to do it.
I mean, then give 5,000, wait.
You were on VNA. Did you want anything for Visiting Nurses Association?
No, what did we do for sober living? We already got them 5,000. Well, it's the next rank. Yeah, give VNA 5,000.
Or 41 is where we were at on, oh, we can't do that.
You can't.
Yeah.
Duh.
I'll plug it in, but like you said, we can adjust any of this.
Now we still have 5,500 left? I thought that was,
I am absolutely okay with Iowa Legal Aid being at the bottom of my list. Primarily just because I know, I mean, they get a bunch of, they get assistance, quite a bit of other assistance. I believe they get other assistance through the city, but they absolutely get most of their assistance from their state funding. And yeah, I mean, they do great work, but I also know they're not really an emerging agency in any way, shape, or form. They're a well-established agency.
well, neither's VNA.
Right, and
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar with VNA, so I mean,
been around a
aside
long
from the
time.
building, I think, is
They've
that the
been
buildings
around
over by
hundreds of
Sycamore,
years.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hundreds of years.
Yep.
I honestly was surprised because I had to reread the packet. I didn't understand that they were a 501c. I just always seeing that little building next to Sycamore, I thought they were like
I mean, there's a national
a business.
visiting nurses
Okay.
that have literally been around for hundreds of years. I don't know about the Iowa City, or the Johnson County visiting nurses, I stand corrected, but yeah, it's been around.
I just know you and I are the only ones that had made recommendations toward Iowa Legal Aid. It's probably, I mean, it absolutely was in my bottom two, so.
Okay.
So,
It's one of the ones I wouldn't feel that heartbroken if they just don't get this round of funding from us.
there was again, in staff recommendation, a comment about Immigration Welcome Network being too new. When did they incorporate? Do you remember? I tried to find it online, I couldn't.
I don't have that in front of me.
I want to say, I don't know for sure, but I want to
20
say it was like last summer.
And how about
But
Sober Living? When did they incorporate?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. They've
Recently.
purchased, yeah, they applied
Recently, I
last
think
year and then
last year.
they've,
So again, that fairness thing comes in for me. If we aren't considering Immigrant Welcome Network because they're too new, then shouldn't the same
Is that why
standard-
we're not considering it?
Well, it was recommended, and so I don't know when people, when we're reading the staff recommendations, whether or not we're recommending based on what staff are saying in the staff
No, I'm not.
summaries.
I'm not necessarily.
Other people might.
My whole thing is that I think that we know I see compassion. I mean, the community knows I see compassion. So if, the other nonprofits don't get the operational funds and they have any kind of outreach at all, they could at least refer folks to I See Compassion or EMB at this point. And they can apply next year. Anyway. I'm okay with taking that. Did we give Iowa Legal Aid 55?
no, we haven't put anything in for them.
Okay.
No, we left it 0.
I can't see
I'm
that.
okay with that, and I'm okay
Yeah, I'm
with
all right.
hospice leaving
Yeah.
at 0 too. So it's a question of, we've got 5,500 left, and whether it goes to Sober Living or the Welcome Network.
There's also hospice. I don't think anyone's talked about hospice yet.
I'd give Sober Living 5,000.
Yeah, Sober Living had 5,000 on it, yeah.
Yeah, that's in
Yeah,
there.
okay, it's on there.
Hospice.
It's Legal aid, hospice. I'd give hospice 5,000.
We just do a real quick volunteer donation drive and raise another 5,000 real quick.
Do you want to write a check?
I wish I could, that's what I said, if I could.
And we'd give EMV another 500.
And not Iowa City Compassion, which are not Trail, which was our second highest
No, wait.
average.
They have trail.
No, I know, but you're saying give the extra 5. Oh, we did 50, okay, I get it. My eyeballs are blind.
I move we accept that.
0 for this one.
Pardon?
0 for Immigrant Welcome Network of Johnson
Correct.
County.
Am I correct in understanding that there is a discussion that VNA is in a similar scenario as Iowa Legal Aid, where they do receive a lot of extra money from alternate sources other than us?
I mean, their budget shows.
Been here a long time, been around
And
a long time.
their budget showed, I think, 50,000 coming from United Way, 30,000 coming from private donors and grants. I mean, even at 15,000, it was only going to help with 16% of the Medicaid gap they're trying to fill in.
I
I
would
mean,
rather put 5,000, take it from visiting nurses and put it to the Immigration Welcome Network.
It would make a bigger impact on
do too.
the organization, without a doubt.
And that's fine with me, too.
I would also be in favor of that. I know it's always a tough battle, but I feel that the Escucha Mi Voz it's a unique opportunity
This is a
to,
different group. This is the Immigrant Welcome Network,
sorry.
which is different. Well, the one we're talking about is Immigrant Welcome Network, which is different than the Escucha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can give more to EMV, too.
Yeah, where did you want the 5,000?
The Welcome Network. That's my recommendation.
If I remember, their budget was, yeah, I mean, their entire budget is 24,000 for office rent, utilities, food, the whole nine. So I mean, you know, we're talking about 20%, being able to have 20% of that covered from these funds versus, yeah, I mean, 2% for VNA or
30
even Healthy Kids. I mean, either of the larger organizations, but
37,000 is such a little pot to work with. If we had more money, I would have no difficulty giving to visiting nurses
And what is the
and hospice. And even Iowa Legal Aid, I would just have no,
Right.
but we
Right.
have so little money.
Erica and Brianna, I feel like I was here during this whole discussion. The 5,000 minimum was a decision made by us as a group, right? It's not a statutory thing,
It's in the rules of it's been adopted by council, I would say.
right? But it came from a recommendation from us, if I
Yeah.
remember.
Yep, everything about this
Was
program
it somewhat
came from-
recent that we made that rule?
Yes, a couple months ago, we had the council adopt all the current rules of the program.
And the 5,000?
5,000's been a required minimum for years, though. I would
That's
say
what I was asking. I couldn't
10,
remember
12
how
years
long
at
it's
least.
been like that.
The emerging program has always had a minimum of 5,000.
Oh, it has. That's what I was wondering. I couldn't
It's
remember
only
if that was
been,
something that changed.
Yeah.
I mean, because,
And
and the reason I asked that
if
is
you're a
because
nonprofit, you're not going to
Yeah.
go through this application
for
for
less than 5. That's true.
$2,000.
That's true.
I mean, come on, you know.
That's true. I just was thinking for some of these organizations where even 3,000 would be a big help. I mean, yeah. Well, what was it, 2 years ago, we had the one that wanted to do the clothing, the mobile clothing thing, and they only needed like 5 or 6. And I was like, you know, if we could give you 2,500, it'd be perfect. It'd be half your budget, but we couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. You're right, though, Marianne. Yeah, it would be tough to justify going through all the steps to maybe only walk away with 15 to 2.
Did you
So
want the
put 5 in
here?
immigrant welcome? Yeah, which was the amendment that Caleb had made.
And just to clarify, I would be happy, honestly, seeing the 5 either at, or an increase per se in either immigrant welcome or EMV. I feel that the immigrant population is so beneficial in terms of our city's diversity, the skill set that we bring, and in particular, if we can make a larger impact on their budget, I'm greatly in favor of that. And then I would also be in favor, propose if anyone else would as well, with the sober living. If we didn't disperse to immigrant welcome and perhaps we increased EMV. I would also be in favor of splitting that 5,000 across to EMV and sober living. So I really like the health benefit that sober living does, and if they are indeed a newer agency, I think it's a similar premise for a different cause.
That's a good point. And
So this is back to 0.
So, yeah, so you're saying instead of that, putting it there, make that 8,000 and make Iowa City Sober Living 7,500, is that right?
Yes, that's
You're recommending?
that's what I would propose.
I'm okay with that. I withdraw my motion. It was never seconded anyway.
That was,
I'd rather take it from hospice.
I think the nonprofit hospice is really, could use $5,000, though.
and I'm not going, I have a soft spot for hospice as well. I'd like to support them if possible.
So do I. We don't have very much money. And I am looking at, the issues that face our community, and
I will second this motion, so at least we can
Do we
have a
have a
discussion
motion?
about it.
Yeah, we need a motion.
Oh, I thought Caleb, well, I'll make a motion to approve Caleb's recommendations.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
yeah, no.
But, so, was that just open discussion? Or was that motion?
Didn't it pass?
Well, it did, yeah, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Passed. It
Okay.
passed.
I just got my vote in no.
Okay.
Motion carried.
All right, so we're moving forward with those recommendations. Okay.
Okay, let me,
Moving on to agenda item number 6, the FY25 Community Development Block Grant and Home Investment Partnership. Is there any discussion on the FY25 CDBG and home applications?
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
End up with the scores on this one.
I'll start again. I really liked the staff, I don't remember if they did this before, but the risk factor, I thought that was really good. What I didn't like is that it didn't have a place in the scoring, and I would recommend that it go into scoring where the very bottom part of the scoring has points for letters of recommendation, are you a CHOTO, various kinds of things, and that points be, we started 0. I mean, if there's no risk, I don't think an organization should gain points, but if they do have risk factors that the city has identified, that becomes a negative impact to the score. I think that would make the risk factor scoring meaningful. That would be a recommendation I have going forward.
And I will say, this year seemed easier for me, as far as from previous years, as far as the scoring, what was all there, and tying, I don't know if I was just in a fugue state, but this year seemed easier to score for me. And I think it had to do with some of the changes you guys had implemented that came from your discussions in subcommittee, which was making those sections more clear on age groups and percentages. And I like the fact that some of the stuff that was objective and not subjective based that you guys just filled out made it easy. Like I don't have to look through and figure out exactly what the percentage on these things are because you guys have already done the math. There's no reason for me to judge that. That was a help as well. I mean, obviously, there's always going to be some subjectivity. I mean, but I thought it helped reduce it quite a bit.
Well, and I think it's really interesting that a lot of the scores were very, very similar from staff and from the commissioners who scored.
I do think that the final scores should mean something in terms of the funds awarded. So if I'm correct, and I can read that right, I can't. The highest score up there is,
GC.
oh, it's on here?
that sheet right
Okay.
there. Yep, it's the big one.
Okay, that I have to put my
I did the
glasses
same
on.
thing.
Okay.
Shelter house. No, it's not.
PRA. Oh, wait, no, isn't it?
It's Housing Authority.
ICHA has the
Authority.
highest, and the highest score from us
Yeah,
and from staff.
And from staff.
And so I do think decisions should follow the scores. Otherwise, I don't know why we're doing scores.
I'm disagreeing.
TBR is home. We're doing home now, okay? Well, I recommend we give TBR 300,000.
The ICHA?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we got to plug these numbers in, you guys.
So then the next one down is Shelter House.
For us, yeah. And then for staff, it was only by 17 points was the Housing Fellowship.
But I think it's staff, it's this commission.
Yeah,
is-
no, I was just pointing at that, yeah, but we were still close, but yeah. Yeah, I think what were my numbers? Yeah, I had a 40-point switch towards Shelter House as well.
Well, let's throw in the,
Us, though, weren't there, is this their total? I have everything, but the total request was 93,523?
Yeah.
so
Was
can we
some of
just,
those-
can we
wait,
put that
Becky,
in?
wait.
I'm sorry.
Some of the things they asked for are not eligible for home funds, all correct?
Yeah, the portion of the project that was the security desk would not be an eligible home expense.
Okay, and do we know how much that was?
So of that 93, do we know
I don't know
what
that I have that in front
what
of
that
you.
amount would be?
I have it here.
I calculated, but I left that paper at home. So I can't remember what it is.
It'll take me forever to look it up here.
I really should have tabbed this better. Bad job. That's neighborhoods there as well.
Sources and uses.
So the front desk cost was $8,195.86.
So if we just took that off 93, 5,
Someone will have to do the math for me.
you have a fancy calculator on your computer,
I don't think I did.
even a basic one. There it is.
That would be without the,
That would be for all the flooring and, okay.
Got it.
And then what do we have left?
144 in home and 224 in CDBG.
So maybe it doesn't matter, but there is an error in the score for the shelter house for me.
Oh,
It's listed as 385, and in my chart, it's actually 305.
oh,
So
okay.
that changes the numbers a bit, but just for accuracy and calculation. Because I don't think there are 385 points.
Denise just really liked it. She gave all her bonus points.
I think it was handwritten, so that's probably my fault. I don't think I read that correctly.
It was, but I mean, I did do each section, so, yeah, I mean, I had to do that as a reality
Yeah,
check,
that's
but
my fault.
Sorry about that. That's.
I think the Chodo's,
Is the
Housing
Chodo,
Fellowship's the only Chodo.
right, but is that part of the 144 and 224 yet? The Chodo funds?
That's left? Yes.
Okay.
Correct, the 77,000 of Chodo set aside is in that.
Okay, so we need to take that out because that automatically goes to Housing Fellowship.
So just plug
Right.
that in.
Yeah.
For now, just put in 77,000, yeah.
So now what do we have left?
Well, Housing Fellowship is our next highest.
Yeah, but what do we have left? That's what I want to know.
67,000 home and 224 CDBG.
So that's like 291, if I have that correct.
And 190 of that 224 could go to Housing Fellowship.
What are you talking, what?
Well, she was at, there's 224 left. They only requested,
Like 420.
right, but 100, yeah, I guess 190 is what, 190 plus 230, I guess how it was originally spit out. Can any of that 420 go towards CDBG? Bring.
What was your question?
Of the 420 they requested, that can be split up between CDBG and home.
Yeah, it's
However, in
acquisition,
that
so
one.
either one would be eligible. I
That's
averaged the,
77,000 carve out, okay.
yeah, I think I averaged the shelter house score and it should have been 272, if that makes a difference for anybody with the corrected score.
Okay. It still puts them in second.
Yeah, it doesn't change the rankings.
Shelter House has to do Davis-Bacon and Title III, right?
Section 3,
Section 3?
they would not have to do section 3 if the total project is under $200,000. So this one would not, section 3 would not apply to that one. But Davis-Bacon, yes.
Okay. That's hard to read. I can't read it. What do we got for Shelter House? 85,000. Okay.
So, well, I think we drop, I mean, the lowest scores are UAY,
DVIP.
VAP, and neighborhood centers.
Neighborhood centers is all CDBG, though.
CDBG only.
Yeah.
Right, it's not eligible for home.
Right, yeah.
Right.
So, and what is left in CDBG?
224, you haven't plugged anything in yet for that?
Okay. But, let's see.
I like the neighborhood centers application.
But they got a lower score than Housing Fellowship, so I think we should decide on Housing Fellowship and see if there's anything left.
Well,
We're still 67,000 in home funds. The only other project that's even eligible is UAY, which was the lowest scoring
Yeah.
across the board. So if we're not going to fund UAY, then we should just put that remaining 67 towards the Housing Fellowship's rental acquisition, is my guess.
I agree with
It's the only other
that.
place to put it, really.
Yeah,
I agree.
I agree.
So, yeah, so now we're back over, now we're on CDBG.
Well, I think
So you-
we should,
The neighborhood center is asking for 65.
funding recommendation, 34,000. Is that from staff?
Yeah.
And why was that?
That was similar. There was a portion of the project that would not be eligible.
Oh, that's right, the shed. So was the rest of the application that's eligible 34,000?
I think we prioritized the higher scoring applications first, and then we came to this one. I don't remember how much the shed was offhand.
Where is it? There it is.
Are we generally in agreement that we're probably not going to be able to fund UAY today, this time around?
I agree.
So
I
we
agree
just
with
punch
that.
0 and 0 in?
Yeah.
How about the next one up with DVIP?
Well,
I know I'm kind of working from the bottom up just to think. I guess we could put 0 in the shelter house because it's already fully funded with just home. So it would be a question of, I mean, if we took 224 minus 60,000, what's that, 184,000? Somewhere in there?
You doing, what'd you say?
Oh, we have 224,000 left, and I was saying if even the neighborhood center minus the shed was, let's say it was 60,000, that would leave us with 164,000. I mean, the question is, do we want to split that with Housing Fellowship and DVIP, or do we want to focus on Housing Fellowship, which was the third score?
Well, Housing Fellowship asked for $420,000, so with your proposal, what would the total recommendation be then?
164 to right at 300 something.
How did they respond to less funds? What was, I can't remember.
Yeah, if they can't.
I mean, I think this is,
Shelter house,
is
I
it
can
2
look at it.
homes that they're purchasing with this? 2 homes? I think so.
gosh, I read this a long
Yes.
ago.
Increase affordable housing.
Was larger bedroom, two homes, right, with
Yep.
3 to 5 bedrooms?
Yeah, 2 4 to 5 bedroom homes in Iowa City. If the project won't succeed without city funding, their backup plan to use CHDO set aside was to rehab 2 other homes they have in extensive need of rehab that they would use the CHDO set aside dollars for instead. I don't know that they had an answer for what if we kind of get you close but don't get you all the way. I don't know that they really had an answer for that.
Why don't we, wait, staff recommendation. Oh, so we don't have any home funds left. But we can give them CDBG. So
Correct.
if we give the neighborhood centers, because really, the neighborhood centers aren't eligible for home.
Right.
So why don't we give them the 34,000 that would be,
But did you want to give them 34, or did you want to give them what they needed for the full project minus the shed, which was an estimate of 60? They asked for 65 for this whole project. I was just throwing out that if they don't have to build a shed, it's probably going to be, what, 5,000 less, or, I don't know, 6,000 less?
Given that they're the fourth ranking, I'm not so sure that we should be awarding them full funding.
Okay.
See, that doesn't make sense to me.
No, I don't disagree with that either.
well,
We were just talking about them as far as projects, so. So if we put in 34,000 there, which was the original staff recommendation, that puts us 190,000 left, which is what the staff's recommendation for housing fellowship rental acquisition was for CDBG funds. They'd be 90,000 short of home fund recommendations. They'd be $90,000 short of their total request.
I really like the rental acquisition aspect. I feel that it's increasing our actual base of accessible, affordable housing, I guess, as well as construction, but versus even perhaps some of the assistance programs, just so that we can do our best to ensure that there are those assets out there and there are the homes available. So I like the staff recommendations with the 190,000 to Housing Fellowship for the acquisitions.
I'm fine with that.
Which would put us there.
I am too. It's the size of housing that our community needs for larger families, and
Yeah.
that's been identified for a couple of years, so.
So that puts us at DVIP and UAY not having funding this session
Right.
through CDBG Home.
Correct. And again, we know that DVIP is in the middle of a big project, and we know about the lots that the city has and everything that's going on, but I just think that it's going to be tough for DVIP to get all that done. Not that they don't do a great job.
Yeah. I'd like to make the motion that we approve the CDBG and home fiscal year 25 as presented on the screen.
But that doesn't get the housing fellowship everything that they need.
They're 90,000 short.
Right.
Out of 420,000, yeah, it's putting them at whatever, 330 or,
So the final scores are, we're Housing Authority at 300, and
first place with full funding.
then Shelter House was number 2, and we gave them full funding on eligible projects.
Right.
Number 3 was Housing Fellowship, and
90 short.
90 short, and
And then Johnson County, yeah, which we basically did about 60% of what they're,
so we're doing 34?
yeah.
Okay.
So there's a motion on the table.
There is a motion.
Second.
Second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item number 7, staff and commission updates. Are there any updates from staff?
Yes, if I can find it. Okay, so next meeting, we met in November. We didn't meet for a long time, but we're going to meet again next month. That'll be April 18th. Becky already mentioned that will include a presentation from the 8 to Agencies Subcommittee, so that will be the final report. We will also look at, every March, we have a spending deadline for projects that were funded with CDBG. So if there are projects that are behind schedule, we'll bring those to the commission for review. There are 3 people on the commission that have terms ending in June. That's Becky, Caleb, and Carol. If you want to reapply for the commission, you can do that online, and they'll keep your application for a year from the date you apply.
Carol, do we still have Carol?
Yeah, her term ends in June as well. What else did you want to cover?
Yeah, I have a couple updates. One thing is that we found out this week that our home ARP allocation plan was finally approved after several amendments I know that you guys saw. So HUD approved it on Monday, and we're excited to start those projects. We have one with Iowa Legal Aid, one with DVIP, and one with Shelter House. So we'll be getting agreements underway and projects underway shortly. Staffing update, wanted to share that Brianna actually just got a promotion that was approved by council this week. So she is now.
Unacceptable. We did not make that recommendation.
You didn't even come to
It needs
object.
to come through us first for recommendation before it goes to them.
What was the total score? I want to know that.
What's your new position?
Senior planner.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And then I also wanted to share, we have a couple vacant positions in our division. We have a housing rehab specialist who administers CDBG and home funds for owner-occupied rehab. And so we have a vacancy for that position. And then we also will have a housing inspector, a rental inspector position posted maybe tomorrow or maybe next week
Newly created or to fill a vacancy?
to fill a vacancy. And so if you know of anyone, please share that.
Is it public knowledge who's leaving?
It's Emma.
Oh, really? Okay.
She got a new job.
Are those full-time jobs?
Yes, both are full-time.
Emma wasn't doing rental though, wasn't she doing community?
She's a housing inspector.
Okay. I just hadn't done any actual rental inspection. I thought she was doing the Zach's old job is what I thought she was doing.
She may have started there, I can't remember.
Okay.
I think she did, yeah.
That's a
The other
bummer.
thing that might be interesting for next time, Caleb was going to attend Johnson County Affordable Housing Coalition. They do a affordable housing project bus tour. So if Caleb's still up for it, he was going to attend that. So maybe we'll have an update in April.
Great.
Caleb may not be affordable.
Yeah.
How bouncy is the bus? Is the bus going to be joltingly?
I'll be there.
You're a trooper for getting here tonight, I'll tell you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any updates from commissioners?
Well, I just want to put a little bit more of a plug in for the committee. It will report next month. We have to get together to do a refresher because it's been so long. I would really like it, please, 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 that we have attendance. It'd be nice if we had full attendance from the commission because the committee has spent a lot of time working on this. And anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Well, my son will be in Florida, and as far as I know, there's not a junior high track meet that night. so
Okay.
That should be good.
Agenda item number 8, adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Be quiet.
We're adjourned.
Quicker.